As you all know, South Sudan is engulfed in a deep national crisis. Its social fabric is torn, its economy is in ruin, reeling under the toxic effects of state capture and runaway corruption. The service delivery system across the country is totally broken, with the people of South Sudan denied any social and developmental services. The state is unable to pay the salaries of civil servants, the army, and the police. Notably, South Sudanese diplomats are rendered homeless in foreign capitals. Rampant violence and insecurity have forced hundreds of thousands of our people to seek refuge in protection of civilian camps run by the United Nations in South Sudan, including in the capital, Juba. Intercommunal fighting is widespread. South Sudan is teetering on the precipice of disaster. All parties here agree on the need for it to be rescued as a country. On this account, we as the opposition, we welcome the Tumaini initiative as the last golden opportunity to rescue South Sudan from collapse and disintegration. We hail the courage shown by President Salva Kiir Mayardit, President of the Republic of South Sudan, for reaching out to the non-signatories opposition group through his request to President William Samoei Ruto to help resolve the South Sudan crisis. Further, we commend the positive engagement and messages sent out by President Salva Kiir Mayardit at the State House to the various South Sudanese groups to rescue South Sudan, and urging the delegations of the revitalized transitional government of national unity and the opposition to work diligently and collaboratively to attain that cherished goal of rescuing South Sudan. We hail the leadership and initiative of President William Ruto to help bring peace to the sisterly country of South Sudan, and the remarkable way he launched the process by attracting a huge regional, continental, and international presence and support. This constituted the first major success. We also applaud him for rebranding the new South Sudan mediation process as the Tumaini Hope Initiative, thus sending a fresh wave of hope to the people of South Sudan, the region, and the continent to achieve a peaceful Africa focused on developing and improving the lives of its people. President William Ruto also held a roundtable donor meeting with the donor community immediately after the launch to mobilize support for the Tumaini initiative. Soon after the restart of the process, the parties signed a declaration of commitment to the Tumaini initiative, the agenda for the peace talks, constituting the third milestone. The mediation and the parties added another success by nurturing and building trust and confidence. This was a landmark and a unique accomplishment in stark contrast to the previous South Sudan peace processes. All that has created a conducive environment and a positive spirit to address the root causes of the conflict and crisis in South Sudan. Crucially, the parties committed themselves to abide by whatever agreement they reach. We extremely are grateful and fortunate that President William Ruto assigned Lieutenant General Lazarus Sambewo, retired, to bring peace to South Sudan once again. He had previously midwifed the birth of South Sudan as an independent nation state. Now South Sudan is on the verge of collapse and descent into chaos and turmoil. And Lieutenant General Lazarus Sambewo, retired, is called upon again to help rescue the country. We are confident in his ability and that of his team, including the co-mediator, the community of Sant'Egidio, to guide the parties to negotiate and craft a rescue plan to usher South Sudan into peace, good governance, and prosperity. We expect that the initiative will lead to a national constitutional conference held here in Kenya and in South Sudan in 2 stages. The expected outcome of the conference will be, 1, the adoption of a new social contract, 2, a constitutional text for our permanent constitution, 3, an interim government arrangement with a rescue program, and 4, implementation modalities. And we strongly appeal to the region, the continent, and the international community to support the people of South Sudan in their search for peace and transition to stability and democracy. We will inform you from time to time about the progress and challenges of this process. Our core message to the people of South Sudan is this: we aim to rescue South Sudan from the specter of collapse and chaos and embark on the twin processes of state and nation building to deliver a peaceful, just, and prosperous South Sudan for all. As SOMA, other opposition groups, and the PCCA, we shall give every investment needed until we achieve this dream. I thank you.
My greetings to you all, members of the press, and welcome to this interactive session. I am happy to talk, to say a few words on behalf of the People's Coalition for Civil Action. This is a non-violent pro-democracy civil rights movement in South Sudan. And we are concerned that the situation in our country is not so good. We have an agreement and implementation, but the implementation is extremely slow and inconsistent and has not helped to deliver peace to the country. And we have all along been calling for a process of national political dialogue for all South Sudanese stakeholders, the government, the opposition groups, and this wide range of civic groups to come together, sit around the table, and build consensus on the state of affairs in our country and agree on how we could collectively resolve the crisis in our country peacefully. And so when this call was made by our President Salva Kiir Mayardit, we followed it with keen interest and were happy that President William Somei Ruto accepted that he would lead this mediation process. And since then, we have been engaging with the high-level mediation team and sharing our views and recommendations on what we expected out of this process. And we're happy that this process is taking shape that we anticipated, that it has been expanded compared to when it was in Rome, It has added more actors to this, and we hope that more actors may be added to make it more inclusive, and that we would focus on substantive issues of our country, and hopefully collectively reach solutions that would usher in an era of peace and stability in South Sudan. We want to thank the Kenyan government under the leadership of President Ruto for hosting this process and mediating, especially under the leadership of the chief mediator, and for the mediation team being so open and interactive with us, and that this process has offered an open space for us to share our views and contributions to the cause of peace in our country. We want to thank you all, the media houses that are represented here, that our people in South Sudan are following this process very keenly. And so it is important that you help to connect them to this process. They have hope that this process would deliver, and they want to get information about this. On our own, we can't do so much, and so we call on you, the media houses from South Sudan, media houses in Kenya, and those from the region and beyond, to help keep our people informed about this process, and also to mobilize support for this process. Thank you all for coming.
Chalo Ali from Radio Tamazuj. Thank you for this press conference. I think South Sudanese are eagerly waiting to know the process, how the process is going on in Nairobi. I would like to ask, I have three questions. The first question is about how is the process going in terms of this initiative? Are you in the same page with the government? Because that is the main negotiator with you. Are you in the same page, or there are some differences so far? Number two, is there any request to ask other rebels who are still not part of this initiative to join? I know we still have some other people who are not part of this, whether there is an initiative to convince them to be part of this process. People like Shirilo, people like Simon Garwuj, and many others, just to mention but few. Whether you are pushing for any initiative so that they are convinced and be part of this process. And number three is about, do you believe that this peace talk this time round will bear fruit? There have been many other peace negotiations before. What is different with the Tumaini initiative this time round?
From the day of the launch on the 9th of May, this process took a very unique approach and created also a different environment from the other peace talks. One, both sides, the government delegation and the opposition, were on the same page that our country is in danger of collapsing into chaos and disorder, that our country is reeling under multiple crises at the same time. We have a constitutional crisis in the country. You know that our attempt to develop and make our permanent constitution started right after independence. Up to now, more than a decade, we have not been able to achieve a permanent, stable, and sustainable system of governance in the country. The country is under a very severe economic crisis. We have probably the most disastrous humanitarian situation, where nearly 90% of our people this year are in danger of starvation and famine. Our country is also a victim of climate change, probably one of the first countries in the world that has become a victim of climate change. Large territory of South Sudan for the last 5 years have been submerged under floods. And this year, the situation is even getting worse. You know that the level of the waters in Lake Victoria has risen, and South Sudan is the lowest area in terms of elevation. So much of the water in the region and around run downward, and that is what form the various tributaries to the Nile River, which actually center around the Sud region in South Sudan. So all these crises, we are all agreed that has created a very dangerous situation that the country can actually disintegrate. It is a young state, but also the regional development around, including and particularly the war in Sudan, is having a very serious impact on South Sudan in many ways. So we are agreed that we need to rescue the country, and that was the first agreement putting us in one page as you described. Secondly, we are all also agreed that this process must be made inclusive. It cannot be limited to the political elites in the country only, which tend to make the political elites think about only power sharing and forget the rescue program of the country. It must be including all the stakeholders in South Sudan. And that's the second agreement. And on second question, that this process must be inclusive, and we are working to make sure all the other parties and movements that are not involved here to be part of this process, and also for this process actually to transform itself into an inclusive national constitutional conference with the participation of all South Sudanese stakeholders, including representative of our women, representative of our youth, who are the majority of our, they must be on the table. And yes, believe the Tumaini process provide a big hope for our people, and we believe it will result in the rescue of South Sudan. And this time around, we will of course learn from all experience in failing to implement agreement, and learn from those experiences so that we are able to achieve a breakthrough into ushering South Sudan into peace and good governance. As for election, we believe elections, the country is now divided and in a lot of crisis. It is not prepared for elections, and we believe part of the outcome of the Tumaini process may be a rescheduling of the election will come, and those elections will then be now organized on the basis of our permanent constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Agri Mutambo for the East African. I have a question relating to the social contract. Could you clarify what you mean by the social contract and how different it will be from the Constitution, which ordinarily would provide that kind of arrangement for the leadership of South Sudan to provide services to the public.
My name is Lilian Odera. I work for the Standard Group, which also owns several media houses, several radio stations, print, and a TV station, several TV stations, including KTN News, which I think you're all very familiar with. Now, Honorable Pagan, I'm glad that you're talking about, you're very positive about this Tumaini initiative, which you say seems to be the last golden opportunity to bring lasting peace. I'm so glad that the international community has really never given up on this young country. It's been quite a journey. And which brings me to the question, even as we embark on this peace process, I think it's very important that we look back, we introspect and think, where did the rain start beating us? Soon after independence, during the formation of the country, can you sit here and say that there is a common unifying factor, or a culture that was ever created for South Sudan? The other thing is that where we sit, it's important that we're very honest. Do you really believe there is genuine political will to bring peace to South Sudan? Because at the end of the day, the people who are suffering are not the political elite, you guys sitting here, but it is the common people down there. They're the ones who are suffering. Do you think the political elite in South Sudan are genuine in this quest for peace?
Major General Charles Gitwai, head of peace monitoring body in South Sudan, has consistently said that South Sudan is not ready for elections, and you've reiterated that what you expect as part of the outcomes of this process is the rescheduling of the elections in South Sudan slated for December. Your people are getting tired in South Sudan. The public servants are not being paid. The economy is dwindling. Talking of elections, do you want to be part of the transitional government that, if this process is successful and the outcomes of this process dictates that you are going to reschedule the elections in your country, do you want to be part of the transitional authority in South Sudan?
Okay, I would like also that my colleague, especially on my left, to contribute, but all of us actually. For the interim governance arrangement, yes, definitely we are here, as we mentioned, discussing in a collaborative manner to develop and agree on a rescue plan for South Sudan. This rescue plan for South Sudan definitely will need an interim governance arrangement with the focus to implement that rescue plan. First, we need to rescue the country, and therefore we must put in place, especially now that the transitional government of national unity extension ends by February 2025, that is in less than 8 months from now. So we need to put in place transitional governance arrangement, including a government system with a structure, with the focus of implementing the transitional rescue program. And that should be the main focus. This is not about participating or joining or sharing power. No, this is about rescuing South Sudan, first stabilizing it, and then build permanent system on the basis of the new constitution, which will be part of the rescue plan, on which basis our people then get back the power to elect their government in peaceful, free, and credible elections periodically from time to time as on the basis of our permanent constitution. That is the plan, and that would be the need for a transitional government structures. For the social contract, it is precisely for South Sudanese to articulate our dream. As a people, we have struggled for centuries to restore our dignity and our freedom. We have been subjects of different exploitative and plundering states, from the Turco-Egyptian state, the colonial state, the Jalaba state of the Sudan. South Sudanese have been victims of those states. Now that we have achieved our independence and determined our future, what is that common dream to achieve, and what type of a state we need to build? This has to be reflected in the new social contract, which will actually articulate what my sister Odera mentioned, the unifying common factor. That is what we really need to articulate. Then this will define what state we want to have, what will that state serve the people, what power do we concede to that state, and how do we transform ourselves into a nation living in peace and harmony from all our various ethnic group, and how do we manage our diversity peacefully. These would be articulated in the social contract, but it will find translation in the Constitution as our basic law. Do we have, we the political elite, do we really have political will to achieve a breakthrough this time? This is a question that we are dealing with, first by making sure that this process is inclusive. It is not limited to the political elite in the country. It must find expression to bring to the table the voices of our religious and traditional leaders, of our women movement. And on this specifically, you know that our state, the present state that we have built in difficult and wrong processes, inclusive, has become a very violent state, marginalizing our women. And you can see all the gender bias and violence that is meted out by our current state, including by the conflict that we have. And therefore, the question of building a state that achieves equality and ends the marginalization of women is key. And this cannot be a gift to women of South Sudan. It must be a result of their own struggle and expression of their voices and interests in this country. So making this process inclusive is the only guarantee to ensure that the political elite will not continue capturing the state and focusing on pursuit of egotistic interest which lead to plunder of the states and its resources. And looking back definitely will help us because we have a lot of lessons out of our mistakes that we have been committing in the beginning of the building of this state to correct our path in the process of state and nation building.
You are most welcome for this important briefing, press briefing. I'm going to take from some of the questions which were raised. Ladies and gentlemen, let me go back to one of the questions raised by Chalo Ali about are we urging the other leaders to join the peace talks? To be precise here, ladies and gentlemen, having heard from the presentation or the press statement issued by Honorable Pagan, I think you should be vividly aware that this process, the Tumaini initiative, which is translated as hope, is not only for us or the political leaders, whether from the government or the opposition who are here, but as it is, this Tumaini initiative will be the last hope for the people of South Sudan to address all the grievances, the problems that you all know. So on whether our brothers who are not here will come or not, as long as this process will endure resolve and we shall agree to really address the root causes of the problem in the country, then I think all South Sudanese will appreciate and welcome it. As one somebody says, it doesn't matter the cat is black or red, as long as it catches the mice, that is not a problem. So I hope our brothers who are not here present will join the people of South Sudan in the event that we as South Sudanese unanimously accept our own faults and agree to resolve the problems that bedevil our country. So that is on whether our brothers who are not here will come or not, I think. And secondly, where did the rain start beating us? Yes, one of the questions raised. As our brothers and sisters in the region and Africa at large has been following the events in South Sudan, we have come a long way, as we all know. South Sudan is a product of more than 50 years history of struggle to reach to where it is. And all along these years, mostly the problems has always been associated with identity politics. Identity politics where we have leaders who does not take into account the importance of considering leadership as a basis of serving the people. It started when we were a single Sudan, and this problem of identity politics made the whole country in chaos and until 2011 when the country was divided. Unfortunately, little did our liberators, the leaders who fought for the liberation, learn the history they came along all away from. And just all of a sudden, again, adopt that the same practices that we had been fighting against for the last 50 years. And this has been the basis of the conflict, the origin where the rain began beating us. After the independence, the leaders have not put in place the mechanisms and structures that will uphold the principle of good governance and democracy. So this has been the point of departure, and the leaders caused the country to chaos up to now. And this is where, with this hope, with this Tumaini initiative, we have realized where we have fallen, and it's from here that we accepted and appreciated the initiative of Kenyan president for accepting to mediate this, because it is from here that we need to now rise. And lastly, the elections, as has been raised. Yes, we all know that the government in Juba is planning to conduct elections according to the reaccrues, which would have been conducted actually years back. But knowing the intransigence and the weaknesses and failures, it reaches to where we are now. And as they plan to conduct this election in December this year, I think we are all witnesses of all the factors surrounding whether this will happen or not. And to us here as leaders in this process, we are likewise hopeful that this process will not materialize, because we all know in the reaccrues, the steps that could have led to this election. So by this process, as long as we shall agree on putting the country on track, I think the necessity of putting a mechanism in form of implementation, and that will lead us to what Honorable Fagan says about the need for putting in place an interim arrangement. So if this initiative will come up with that interim arrangement, after we agree on rescuing the country, I think this will serve the best way forward, other than the election that the government is planning to undertake in December, which we all doubt given the challenges at hand. So I'll give a chance for my colleagues to also comment on what some of the questions I might have not touched. Thank you very much.
The fact that President Kiir reached out to a sisterly nation like Kenya, when you acknowledge that there is a problem in my house and you need your friend to come over and help problem solve, that shows that you acknowledge there is something that is happening, and that shows a political will and also the willingness for the President Kiir to come to Kenya, and also being here as opposition show that also the interest of our people is the priority at this moment in time. Going on to others, as narrated by Honorable Pagan and also my colleagues, South Sudan is a nation, is a plural society. And when you have a plural society, how do you build and construct such a society? Acknowledging the diversity and building that equitable society where everyone is reflected. And I think that's what we meant by social contract, that we want to make sure that
the 64 nationalities, which loosely referred to as tribes, these are very unique in their own setting. How do you acknowledge that everyone is able to see themselves in the new country, given the historical indifference that has been created by colonials and also the inherited by the central government in Khartoum that now led to the split of South Sudan? So we are very hopeful that President Ruto government will continue to support, as he has willfully accepted, to help mediate, and we are here to solve the problem. So I am very faithful. I have faith in this process that the inclusivity that bring all South Sudanese from all different backgrounds and walk of life, I think will really help this time around, because we have all acknowledged that there is a time to disagree, and there is also a time for recognition that we want to join the rest of the world in developing this young nation and make it a place where people can call home.
The PCCA is pleased to share this platform with the leaders of the opposition, and specifically to speak to the people of South Sudan and the rest of the world about this process. We want to respond briefly to the questions from Lilian Odera of the Standard Group on KTN and Mwangi Maina. Lilian asked if there is a unified culture ever created in South Sudan. We may question this right now, but from the 9th of July 2011, when our flag was hoisted at independence, we had a common culture and common aspirations for a just, free, and prosperous nation. And we gave our leaders all the trust and confidence they needed to deliver that just, free, and prosperous nation. I think by now, from the perspective of the citizens, that trust and confidence we vested in our leaders to deliver that country for us has been considerably fractured and destroyed. And it is the reason we are sitting here in Kenya today to try to build that trust and confidence to deliver the country we aspired when we voted at for independence. The second question you asked was, is there political will by the political elites in South Sudan to bring peace to the country? If there was political will, we would not be here today. We would be in a very peaceful, stable, and democratic country. And so we believe that there is a problem with political will, but that is not our focus. Our focus is to create that political will. And it is our hope that the engagement we're undertaking in this Tumaini initiative will help to regenerate the political will necessary to deliver the South Sudan we aspired for when our flag of freedom was hoisted in 2011. And from Mwangi Maina, you actually mentioned that Major General Charles Gitwai, the chair of the reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission, the highest oversight mechanism of the peace agreement in the country, has repeatedly said South Sudan is not ready for elections. It is the position we hold in the People's Coalition for Civil Action, that our country is not prepared for elections. The peace agreement has provided a clear framework and roadmap to deliver the country to elections. And all of those tasks that are outlined in the agreement have not been accomplished. And we have raised this numerous times, especially at the beginning of 2022, because the elections for December this year were supposed to happen in December 2022. And having assessed the whole arrangements and the status of implementation of the agreement, we were convinced that elections were not possible by the end of that year. We raised this with IGAD, we raised this with the political actors in the country, and of course elections did not happen. As we speak now, the preparations for elections have not been undertaken meaningfully. The elections process has not been effectively funded, and time has almost run out to get the country ready for elections. So we believe that elections will not be possible by the end of this year. And that gives importance to this process, that if we're not going to conclude this transitional period of the peace agreement as anticipated, I think it makes it important for us as a country and as people to then sit and build consensus on how this transition may be concluded, and then an arrangement is made that, as G. Pagan talked about, to regenerate an interim period that would deliver on all of those tasks that are required to transition the country to a stable democracy. You asked if the opposition or if this group is willing to join the transitional government. I may not speak for the opposition, but I do not know if there's any political actor that engages in politics without interest in power. But speaking for the People's Coalition for Civil Action, we are a civil rights movement, and so we are not pursuing political power. Our purpose of being in this process is to ensure that this process helps to deliver the South Sudan our people want, and to help those who are displaced internally and those who have lived in Kenya for ages now to find ways to go back home in peace and dignity, and to resettle and rebuild their lives. And so that objective we will pursue, not necessarily in terms of pursuing power, but I think that makes this process important to us, that it should deliver change. And so the PCCA is here to contribute to this for that reason, and also to work with the political leaders from the transitional government of national unity and the leaders of the opposition, whom we believe are our political leaders, together to ensure that they respond to the call of the people and help to restore peace and hope for the people of South Sudan. Thank you.
As we speak this morning, millions of our people in South Sudan cannot afford Wogali. There's no schools, there's no hospitals, there's no roads. Our people are suffering. And when we talk about social contract, it is a belief that as people of South Sudan, we have about 64 tribes, but those tribes will never unite us. Our regions will never unite us. Our states will never unite us. Our political parties will never unite us. But the only thing can unite the people of South Sudan is our belief in the Republic of South Sudan. South Sudan that is just, democratic, peaceful for all of us can unite the people of South Sudan. And to arrive to that, it needs a social contract. And that will happen between the people and the elites. And it is very important. Until we realize that, there will never be peace in South Sudan. It is not an easy task. It is difficult. But this Tumaini initiative, under auspices of President William Ruto, we see a hope at the end of the tunnel.
We recently had an interview with you about engaging the holdout groups, non-signatories, those who are not part of this process. And yesterday we reached out to Thomas Cirillo's group, and they denied, because a few hours earlier I also had an engagement with General Stephen Boy, and he talked about inclusivity and engaging those of Thomas Cirillo and Gatwich. But the NAS of Thomas Cirillo denied any communication. So I want to understand the progress so far of engaging other parties who are not part of the Tumaini initiative? Thank you.
I might have walked in late, but most of my questions will be hypothetical. You've spoken about the extension of the transition government ends in February 2025. What I want to know is when do you expect the peace talks to end between the transitional government and the opposition? And secondly, one of your speakers has said this should be the last hope for the people of South Sudan. My question will be, what should the people of South Sudan expect out of this ongoing mediation in Nairobi? And lastly, as I said, it's hypothetical. If the talks fail, what next for South Sudan and what next for the opposition? Thank you.
The citizens are now eager to hear what are the, actually what are you been now in terms of the negotiations? How far are the parties engaged in South Sudan? Thank you so much.
On the question of how to include the other movements and political forces who are not in this process now, our position is this. We want this Tumaini initiative to be an inclusive process at two levels. One, that all the political forces in the country should join this process, and we have been appealing to them to join the process. Now, it depends on them. If they don't join, there's no way we can force them. But our position is that we want this process inclusive. On how long will this process take? We do not know. But we are working, and we are all mindful, all the participants here are mindful that the situation in our country is very difficult, and we need to redouble our effort to deliver a rescue plan for the country. This is not just a peace, another peace agreement. It is a rescue plan. And we must also be ready to make sure that this time round we have a very clear implementation modalities and mechanism that must ensure that we rescue the country and usher it into permanent peace and good governance. And we cannot afford to fail again. And therefore, we will learn from all our mistakes in the past that made peace to be elusive for us as a people. What should the people of South Sudan expect from this process? The people of South Sudan expect nothing short of a comprehensive rescue plan to take South Sudan out of the violence and the deep national crisis we are in. And all of us are going to work to ensure that we collaborate not only in developing the rescue plan, but also working together to implement it. Remember, one of the achievements we have made here was to begin building trust and confidence among ourselves so that we change our mindset from that of conflict mindset to resolution of conflict mindset, to a mindset of collaboration and of building peace in our country. And this is different from all what happened in the past. since we started the discussion here, you know that we have signed a declaration of commitment, and that is a public document. It is a very important document. We have also worked to develop the process of trust and confidence building. We have received a report that covers all the discussion we have had, and we believe that report is a good document for the parties to develop that comprehensive rescue plan that will include protocols and transitional programs, transition or interim governance arrangements, and all that for us to translate them also into developing a constitutional text, and from here move back into the country to implement that rescue plan to usher the country into peace and good governance. That way, rescue the country and make sure that the country is out of this crisis that is gripping us. With this, I would like to thank you. Keep your interest and focus on what we are doing here. Deliver this message to our people, and we will be available to answer all your questions as we navigate this process with hope to deliver South Sudan into peace and democracy and good governance, hopefully very soon. Of course, all this will also give answer to what will come if the transitional government of national unity come to an end before or by February next year. We are all hopeful that we will have ready the rescue plan to be put in place immediately, and we proceed to take the country into peace and democracy. I thank you very much. Please be with us and seek us and help us so that we can rescue our people and the country. Thank you very much.